All right, let's start with an easy one. What's your all-time favorite record?
And that's probably a very hard question for me to answer. Um, all of them, because they all are pretty much about me and my life in different segments of it, the good and the bad. And with some of the tragedies in it involved in my life and some of the beautiful things that are involved in my life. So it's really hard to distinguish which one's my favorite. I have to say, now, are you asking me that as a solo artist, or are you asking me that as a former band member of Imaginos? Is my question. That's my question to you, because there is something that I can add to the answer to the question.
Well, how about you answer it both ways?
Well, as a solo artist is probably my first record as a solo artist, which is Growing Up in Public. At the time when I did it, it was despised, it was hated, it was no good. But so many people today that listen to the array of my stuff, it's one of their favorites. And I just, it's different. And anybody who hasn't listened to it, that's any kind of a fan of mine, I suggest that they do listen to it if they have not. As far as with Imaginos, probably my absolute favorite would be the Berlin album, which I also redid as a solo artist.
Which song has been most meaningful to you over the years, both at the time that you wrote it and that has the most meaning to you now?
As a solo artist, you said.
Sure.
Again, I don't have a lot of collaboration with music post 1995. So with this in mind, it's all my favorite, because I'm not so sure that I'm the right person to judge about it. I think it's up to the listeners to judge that stuff, because it's a lot more difficult when you're sitting on the other side and you're the one writing it, you're the one performing it, you're the one singing it, because so many songs that I have done over the years, which were now well over 200, when you do them and you listen to it, it's like, wow, this is going to be huge, this is going to be big, and everybody hates it. And then when you get a song on there that you're like, it's like a filler to make sure that you can get the album completed, or if you have a song that can never quite fit in somewhere and you fit it in one particular record, let's say, and people hear it, they're, oh man, and they're like hits, and it's like, how is that even possible? It's a very hard question to ask for me to give you the kind of answer I think that you seek.
All right. Through the years, you've explored some different topics, maybe some darker times. How has songs like Possum Day, The Rock Minuet, and All Through the Night, what do those mean to you? How have you grown from them? What do you feel when you look back on those times?
On which one? It's probably a question of asking them questions separately, because you just covered a lot of subject matter. So do you have one that you want to perhaps dissect, or?
Sure. Let's start with All Through the Night.
Well, that was off of an album called The Bells. That was the last album that I was involved with the Imaginos band. And at the time, let's talk about the record first off. At the time, I didn't like it. I just didn't like the material. Now, the music was brought to me. Don did most of the music on it, and brought the music to us and said, okay, what can we put in with this? I did most of the lyric writing for it. But I had to do it fast. Because things between us were disintegrating rapidly, and the cooperation was rather poor from myself and the others. So on the song All Through the Night, it's basically a song which, let me also say, with that particular song, I've also redone that song fairly recent. It has not been published, but I do plan to publish it. I think the remake come out very good. But basically, the song is about the lifestyle of a junkie and what goes on when you're boosting for drugs, or you're copping for drugs, or specifically heroin, and you try to get help, and you get help, and when you go to get help at the rehabilitation centers, or like I state in the song about going to St. Vincent's where there was NA meetings, and most of the people were coming in there were all hopped up too, and then you might come back a week or two later, and there's people that are dead. And also in the song, it basically describes about how sexual libido is brought to a nil when you're doing those mind altering chemicals. And it's a very truthful song. It's sad to say, at that time, we were definitely pretty much out of our minds and extremely stoned, to say the least. But we brought the whole category of the meaning of that song to life. And if any average individual that has never had any kind of a drug issue or anything like that listen to it, it probably wouldn't make much sense to them. But ones who have, it would make sense to them. They would understand everything that we were trying to explain in that song. Now, when I redid this particular song, I took it from a little over a 4-minute song to almost a 15-minute song. So, I mean, the words are all the same, the bass lines are all the same, everything like that. Brought the time up on it a little bit. But I believe it was a complete success of redoing that song. But I must say that it was much harder than I thought to redo, and much harder than I thought it would have been. And of course, I was working with totally different people, more cooperative people, and it was fun though. When we initially did the song, it really wasn't that fun. It was just the other day. I was telling Bonnie, when you're making music and you can't have fun doing it, music will suffer. And I know for a fact that Don and John felt that way clearly, because they left about the same time I did. I hope that answers your question.
I think so. Talk to me about Possum Day.
Possum Day, that was off of the Paranoid Key of E album, one of my more popular solo projects. Possum Day is a pretty crazy song. Most people that hear that song even today, I think they get a little bit scared about even having a conversation with me. It's not the kind of song I wouldn't even dream about trying to write today. It's just not something that would come to mind to write. But at that time, it was different. At that time, my drug addictions were as bad as they could get. I had just lost a spouse, And I mean, I literally basically went mad for quite some time. And this song is basically describing the things that I did when I went mad. Um, you know, just severe drug addiction, the depression, the drinking, just the horrible reality of such a horrible loss and losing control. At that time, I had a very, very shallow support for myself, which made it even harder. But always at the time of crises or hard times, or even if the times are fantastic, I can always normally squeak out something pretty interesting with that. And of course, that particular song is 19 minutes long. So, but the song basically goes into deep detail about drinking, crack use, the purchasing of prostitutes, just really, really tough stuff. It's not the kind of thing that you'd want to put on a jukebox at your local Applebee's. Let's put it that way.
How do you feel when you look back on those times?
Grateful that they don't go on now. Grateful that even at times of serious crisis, I was able to have a good venting system, which is what I've always used in my music, is a way to vent. Because even as a young man, I was a very angry young man, I mean, there's a big difference in how I feel and how I react to things from when I was 15 to damn near 50 now. But there's a huge difference, clearly. But having this venting system clearly has been very helpful over the years.
If you could go back and if you could redo any record now, which one would you choose and why, and would you change anything about it?
There's a couple that I would love to redo, but I'm not so sure that they're attainable. I would love to redo the Bells. We already discussed that. I would love to. I've already redone the Berlin album, which was, for all intents and purposes, my record. I mean, I had the most input on it, the most music writing on it, and all that. Definitely, I would have to say the Bells. I'd love to do Growing Up in Public again. And I also put in serious consideration on redoing the Songs for Laura album and the Kimmy Island Baby album, which are clearly classics. But, it was just the other day, I tried to play a song from the Kimmy Island Baby album, and I'm like, wow, how did I do that? And that was from 1991. So, I mean, it was one of the earlier records. As a matter of fact, I believe it was the third record. Third, that's correct.
A lot has changed through the years. What are you working on now?
Well, I kind of been working on two separate projects that are completely opposite of one another, especially with subject matter and with music. The one, which I think is what I'm going to release first, it'll probably be later in the late summer. It's kind of rolling back into what my music used to sound like. Specifically back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And it's, the last couple of years, I've really sustained some very serious losses with people. And people that I know who, that have had these losses, family wise. I know some of these families, and I know some of them pretty well, and they're really going through a hard time. I'm not going to put names out there, and I had given people my word that I would not, and I will not. But there's one in specific that I've been in pretty good contact with, and to feel the suffering that they're going through as a result of the loss is something I can feel very, very well. I know what they're going through. I know how they feel, and their loss was very similar to a loss that I once had. Circumstances a little bit different, but it's still the same. And it's very unfortunate. They're fantastic people, and it's sad. And also another loss, as everybody well knows, that Donnie, a former band member of mine and John's, he passed away in December of 2016. An incredible musician, and he passed away from different ailments, and there were some others. Some of them are the result of natural causes. Some of them are the results of drug addiction. Some of them are a result of suicide, and it just seems like they all happened in a short period of time. So it's like, what was on my mind? What I normally write about is what's going on around me. And what really gets me, I think, more than anything, excuse me, is, the when you hear about suicide and you hear about drug overdoses, and just to people you wouldn't think that they would do it, and it's just terrible. But it's a whole record about this, and it's about these people. I personalize quite a bit of it. Donnie's involved in this. April Gifford Morgan's involved in this, and there's I mesh it into one whole album, and I'm gonna name the record. I'm gonna already give you the title of the record. It's called Magic and Loss. Donnie was a fellow musician and a very good personal friend. We became enemies, and then the last several years of his life, we reinstituted our friendship, and we were very close again, all the way up to the end. April was somebody I've known since like kindergarten. Talked to her at different various times throughout our lives. April was always a good listener. When you had issues and problems, she was a good listener, and she was always able to communicate with one so that they could understand it. And I know many people would agree with that statement that I just made. She passed away in October of last year. And then, and so basically what the record is, it's going to have 15 tracks, and for the most part, it's about their lives and how they influence me one way or the other. So it's kind of going from one end of the field to the other, but it's all wrapped basically in about the same thing. And I thought, for dedication purposes, I would get a little bit deeper and discuss things that I know that some of these individuals may have been going through, what I have gone through on a personal basis, and kind of put it all in together and try to put in there good informative information on how to get through it. Because I believe that's something that they might have liked. It's very, very hard musically, let alone lyrically, putting something like that together. Now, also, you asked what else I was working on, so I got that, and I just gotta. I'm pretty much finished with it, but I just got to. Uh, well, just do a little cleanups on a little bit of this, a little bit of that, maybe, on some stuff that kind of drives me a little bit nutty about how it sounds. So, there's stuff I got to do with that, like that. But it's well underway. So after talking, me and Bonnie have had some big conversations on this, because the other project that I'm working on is actually a continuation off of Picture This. And it's basically going from what I was dealing with in the album Picture This to what I have now, and which is a marvelous thing. I have an incredible lady in my life. I couldn't have better. It is somebody I've known since the 5th grade, I believe. So we're going back to about 1986, 1987. And I have been in touch with her off and on over the years, and not all that long ago, we hit it off really good, and we got together, and without speaking for her, I think she's very happy, and I know that I am very happy, and it has been an incredible experience when you know somebody for 30 plus odd years, and then all at once you're a couple, and it's interesting. It's definitely like a dream come true. So you can bet the farm that I treat this with kid gloves, because I certainly would like this to work. But anyway, I'm off the subject matter. But that is what both of these projects are that I'm working on. So I'm not really sure when the one about what I got now is going to get put out. But I do know that I'm going to put the Magic and Loss album out probably later this summer, as soon as I get a couple little things done with it. I must say that it is different. It was very hard to write music for it, but we're going to give it a go. Any good artist will take the chance, and that's something that I've always done. Sometimes I come up on the good side, and sometimes I don't.
Well, that all sounds wonderful. We wait in great anticipation and look forward to the end of summer. Thanks for visiting with us today.